Deep in the misty woodlands of Pinecrest County, veteran forest ranger Jack Holloway discovers two identical 9-year-old girls huddled beneath an old stone bridge. Their clothes are torn, their eyes haunted by something no child should witness. "They hurt Mama," they whisper through trembling lips. With those 3 words, Jack's orderly life shatters. Taking the twins to safety was the easy part. Now he faces a dangerous mystery that powerful people want buried. As he pieces together the truth about their mother, Jack confronts his own painful past. Will this broken man find the courage to stand against those who would silence these children forever? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The morning mist hung between the pines like gossamer curtains as Jack Holloway made his final note in the logbook. Tracks suggest increased bear activity near Manzanita Creek, posted additional warnings. His handwriting, much like the man himself, was precise and unhurried. 23 years of entries filled the weathered pages, a testament to his devotion to these woods. Jack closed the book and tucked it into his olive-green jacket. Duke, his German shepherd, watched him with intelligent eyes that seemed to understand far more than most humans Jack encountered. "Just us again today, old boy," he said, scratching behind the dog's ears. Duke's tail thumped against the cabin's wooden floor. A simple, reliable response. The ranger station was a modest, single-room cabin with worn furniture that predated Jack's tenure. A pot of coffee still warmed on the hot plate, strong and black. Like he preferred most things in life, uncomplicated, the radio crackled with the morning check-in from headquarters 30 miles south. "Holloway, a copy." Jack's voice was deep and measured. "Morning, Jack. Any issues to report?" The voice belonged to Linda Parsons, dispatch coordinator for the Pinecrest Ranger District. "Negative." "All quiet." It was his standard response. Jack preferred it that way. "Weather Service says storm front moving in by evening. Might want to check the North Ridge trails." "Copy that." Jack holstered his radio and looked through the window at the wilderness he'd sworn to protect. Pinecrest National Forest stretched across 170,000 acres of pristine woodland. To most, it was a recreational paradise. To Jack, it was home, the only place he truly belonged after his marriage collapsed 13 years ago. He opened the worn wooden box on his desk, removing his badge. The silver pine tree emblem had dulled over the decades, but it remained a symbol of purpose. Jack pinned it to his shirt with practice movements. "Let's make our rounds," he told Duke, who was already waiting by the door. The forest welcomed them with a symphony of sounds that Jack could read like a newspaper. Chickadees announcing territory, wind through white pines. The distant hammering of a piloted woodpecker. All was as it should be. An hour into his patrol, Jack noticed the tire tracks cutting through a service road, too deep for a standard vehicle, too wide for ATVs. He crouched, measuring the impression with his fingers. "Heavy truck. Recent," he murmured to himself. Duke sniffed along the tread marks, head low to the ground. A flutter of movement caught Jack's attention. Deputy Sheriff Melissa Cruz, emerging from her county cruiser at the trailhead ahead. She spotted him and waved. "Morning, Ranger Holloway." Her tone was professional but friendly. At 38, Cruz was one of the few local officials Jack respected, direct and uninterested in office politics. "Deputy." Jack nodded. "Something bring you all the way out here?" "Got a call about some campers making noise last night. Probably nothing, but thought I'd check while I was in the area." She gestured toward the tire tracks. "You see a truck come through?" "Not yet. Tracks are fresh, though." Cruz frowned. "We've had reports of increased activity around the old logging roads." "County's concerned about drug trafficking." Jack kept his expression neutral. "County concerns rarely aligned with forest priorities." "I'll keep an eye out." "Appreciate it." Cruz hesitated. "How are you holding up?" "Heard your daughter had her second child last month." Jack's jaw tightened imperceptibly. "So I'm told." The silence that followed spoke volumes. Cruz, to her credit, didn't push. "Well, I should finish my rounds. Stay safe out there, Holloway." After she left, Jack continued along the ridge trail, Duke trotting faithfully beside him. The distant roll of thunder matched his mood. 14 years since he'd spoken to his daughter. 14 years of birthdays, holidays, and now grandchildren he'd never know. All because he'd chosen this forest over a failing marriage. The radio at his hip crackled. "Jack, you copy?" "Got hikers reporting strange noises by Whitewater Bridge." He pressed the talk button. "I'm about 2 miles out." "I'll check it." As he adjusted course toward the old stone bridge, Jack had no way of knowing that the choice to answer this call would shatter his carefully constructed solitude forever. "Lily, look!" A red-tailed hawk. Rose's whisper carried the excitement of discovery as she pointed skyward. Her identical twin sister raised the old Polaroid camera, carefully framing the raptor against the blue canvas of morning sky. The mechanical click and whir was followed by the familiar sound of film ejecting. Lily gently took the developing photograph and handed it to Rose, who added it to their growing collection. "Mama will love this one," Rose said, tucking the photo into the small album they'd been filling all summer. The sisters shared the same heart-shaped face, chestnut hair and amber eyes, a perfect mirror image down to the tiny freckle below their right ears. Yet to Clara Harper, their differences were as distinct as their similarities. Lily, born 7 minutes earlier, possessed a quiet watchfulness, while Rose approached the world with unguarded curiosity. Their cottage sat nestled in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. Once a Forest Service outpost, Clara had transformed it into a sanctuary filled with books, photographs, and the warmth of a home where discovery was encouraged. On the kitchen wall hung Clara's wildlife photographs, testaments to her work as an environmental photojournalist. "Girls, lunch is ready," Clara's voice carried from the open kitchen window. Inside, Clara Harper sliced fresh tomatoes from their garden. At 36, she possessed the same amber eyes as her daughters, though worry had etched fine lines at their corners in recent months. "We saw a hawk, Mama," Rose announced, bounding into the kitchen with Lily following more deliberately. "And photographed it perfectly," Lily added, presenting the Polaroid. Clara's face brightened. "Beautiful composition, sweetheart. You're developing quite an eye." She pinned the photo to their nature board, a collage of the twins' discoveries. "Did you use the technique I showed you?" Lily nodded earnestly. "I counted to steady my hands." Clara served them sandwiches and sat across the worn pine table. "We need to talk about something," she began, her tone shifting. "Mr. Weston will be visiting again today." The twins exchanged glances. Marcus Weston had entered their lives 4 months ago. A development consultant with expensive suits and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. "Is he still trying to buy our land?" Lily asked, her perception sharper than most adults realized. Clara hesitated. "Yes, but don't worry about that. I need you both to practice our special game again today." The game was a recent addition to their lives, memorizing escape routes through the forest, identifying safe hiding spots, recognizing which adults could be trusted in town. Clara made it feel like adventure rather than preparation. "Remember the bridge?" Clara asked. Rose nodded eagerly. "The stone one where we saw the family of otters. And if we ever need to play the game for real, stay together. No matter what," the twins recited in unison. Clara's phone buzzed. The screen displayed a name that made her frown. She stepped onto the porch, closing the door behind her, but the twins could still hear fragments. "I already told you." "Not interested. My research proves—" Her voice rose slightly. "Those chemicals are killing wildlife. I have documented evidence." The twins continued eating, accustomed to these tense calls. Through the window, they watched their mother pace, one hand gesturing emphatically while the other clutched her notebook, the leather-bound journal that never left her possession. Later, as Clara reviewed their lessons, a black SUV appeared on the dirt road leading to their cottage. The twins noticed their mother's shoulders tense as she quickly placed a USB drive into her pocket. "Girls, remember what I taught you about the old ranger paths?" Clara's voice was calm but urgent. "I need you to take your emergency backpacks to the workshop now." "Use the back door. Is this part of the game?" Rose asked. Clara knelt, looking directly into their identical faces. "Just a precaution. Take the Polaroid and your album. Document everything interesting you see, but stay hidden until I come get you." As the twins slipped out the back door, they heard car doors slamming. From the workshop window, they watched 3 men in suits approach their mother on the porch. The tallest man, not Marcus Weston, spoke with animated gestures. "I don't like this game," Lily whispered, instinctively reaching for her sister's hand. Rose raised the Polaroid, focusing on the strangers through the viewfinder. "Mama said to document everything interesting." The shutter clicked just as the tallest man pointed angrily toward the forest that surrounded their home. The old stone bridge arched over Whitewater Creek, its weathered masonry half hidden by climbing vines and morning mist. Jack approached cautiously, Duke on high alert beside him. The dog's ears perked forward, a low rumble building in his chest. "What is it, boy?" Jack kept his voice low, scanning the area. Years in these woods had taught him to trust the shepherd's instincts. Duke's attention fixed on the shadowed space beneath the bridge. Jack reached for his flashlight, directing its beam into the darkness. The light caught a flash of movement, then the unmistakable gleam of eyes, not animal but human. Small, frightened, watching him like cornered fawns. "Hello?" Jack called softly, lowering himself to appear less threatening. "I'm a forest ranger. Are you lost?" Silence answered him, broken only by the gentle burble of the creek. Jack took a cautious step closer, and Duke whined with unusual concern. "I'm here to help," Jack tried again. "My name's Jack, this is Duke." A whispered conference occurred in the shadows, too quiet to discern. Then a small voice, trembling with exhaustion. "Will you hurt us like they hurt Mama?" The question hit Jack like a physical blow. He crouched down, keeping his movements slow. "No, I would never hurt you. It's my job to protect people in these woods." His eyes had adjusted enough to make out 2 small figures huddled together beneath the bridge's arch. Identical faces, smudged with dirt and streaked with dried tears. "Twin girls, no older than 9. Can you come out where I can see you better?" Jack asked, careful to keep his distance. One girl, or perhaps both, shook their head. "They might see." Jack glanced around, suddenly alert to other presences in the forest. "Who might see?" "The bad men," came the whispered reply. "They had guns." Jack felt the familiar tightening of muscles that preceded danger. These were not simple lost hikers. His hand moved instinctively to the radio at his belt, then stopped. Whatever had frightened these children, this badly required caution. "Are you hurt?" he asked, more whispers between them. Then, "We're hungry." Jack unzipped his pack and removed an energy bar and his canteen. He placed them on a flat stone and stepped back. "Here, food and water." Long moments passed before one girl emerged, darting forward to snatch the offerings before retreating. Jack noticed they wore matching blue jackets, now torn and muddied over simple cotton dresses. No shoes, their feet were scratched and filthy from forest travel. As they shared the single bar between them, Jack noticed one clutched a small stuffed animal, a fox, once bright orange, now matted and stained with mud. The toy was held with the desperate grip of a child clinging to their last safe thing. "My cabin isn't far," Jack said gently. "It's warm and I have more food." Fear flashed across their identical faces. "We can't leave," said the one without the fox. "Mama said wait here." "When did you last see your mama?" Jack asked, his sense of unease growing. The girls exchanged glances, some silent communication passing between them. The one with the fox toy spoke next, her voice barely audible. "Yesterday, they came to our house. They were yelling at Mama about the pictures. Mama told us to run and remember our special game," the other continued. "She said she'd find us at the bridge, but she didn't come." Jack's jaw tightened. Children alone in the forest overnight, fleeing from armed men. This was far beyond his usual responsibilities, but the thought of leaving them here made his chest constrict. "What's your mama's name?" he asked. "Clara Harper," they answered in unison. "And you?" "I'm Lily," said the one with the fox. "She's Rose." Jack nodded, committing their names to memory. "Listen carefully, Lily and Rose. I believe you need help, and I want to make sure you're safe. My cabin has a radio. We can call for your mama there." The twins conferred again in whispers. Duke had edged closer to them, his earlier wariness replaced by a protective stance that surprised Jack. Finally, Rose looked up. "We can't call the police. The bad men said they'd know if we did." Jack processed this, understanding the implication. Someone with authority or influence was involved. Someone the girls had been warned about. "What did they do to your mama?" he asked, dreading the answer. Lily's small hand tightened around her stuffed fox. Her voice, when it came, cut through Jack like winter wind. "They hurt Mama," she said, fresh tears welling. "They hurt her, and she screamed, and then she stopped." In that moment, Jack Holloway made a decision that would change everything. He'd spent years hiding from human connections in these woods. Now, looking at these two frightened children, he knew his solitude had ended. "I'm going to help you," he promised, "but we need to be very careful. Can you trust me?" The twins looked at each other, then back at Jack. Slowly, hesitantly, they nodded. Jack's cabin appeared through the trees, a modest structure of weathered logs and a tin roof that had weathered decades of mountain seasons. To the exhausted twins, it might as well have been a fortress. They'd insisted on walking the entire way, though Jack had offered to carry them when they stumbled on their bare, scratched feet. "This is your house?" Rose asked, her voice small with wonder. "For about 15 years now," Jack replied, unlocking the door. Duke bounded ahead, circling the interior before returning to the twins' side, their self-appointed guardian since the bridge. The cabin's single room held the sparse essentials of Jack's solitary life. A wood stove in the corner, a narrow bed against one wall, a table with a single chair, bookshelves filled with field guides and wilderness survival manuals. Nothing frivolous, nothing childlike. "Wait here," Jack said, retrieving a first aid kit from beside the sink. "Let's clean those cuts before they get infected." The twins stood motionless by the door, identical expressions of wariness on their dirt-smudged faces. They maintained physical contact at all times, holding hands, shoulders touching, as if separation might make them disappear. "You're safe here," Jack assured them, his voice gentler than he'd used in years. "No one knows you're here except me and Duke." Lily's hand moved to her neck, fingers wrapping around a bright orange whistle on a cord. "Mama said if we get separated, blow 3 times. She always comes." The simple faith in her voice made something twist in Jack's chest. He busied himself with wetting a clean cloth. "Let's get you two cleaned up, then something to eat." The twins submitted to his awkward ministrations, wincing as he dabbed antiseptic on their scratches. Jack noticed details his initial assessment had missed: the quality of their muddied clothing, the careful braiding of their hair, now coming loose after their night in the woods. These children had been well cared for before whatever happened. "Your mother," Jack began carefully as he worked. "Does she have a phone I could call?" Rose shook her head. "The bad men took it. They were mad about Mama's pictures." "What pictures?" "The ones of the dead animals by the creek," Lily explained. "Mama said they proved something important." Jack's radio crackled to life, making the twins jump in unison. "Holloway, you check out that disturbance call yet?" Linda's voice from dispatch filled the room. The girl's eyes widened in alarm. Lily's fingers tightened around her whistle. Jack made a calming gesture before responding. "Affirmative. Just hikers making noise. All clear." The lie came easily, necessary protection until he understood what was happening. After providing them with sandwiches and watching them devour the food with desperate hunger, Jack retrieved a notepad from his desk. "I need to understand what happened. Can you tell me about yesterday?" Between bites, the twins related fragments of their ordeal. Men arriving at their cottage, angry voices, their mother's instructions to run to the bridge, the sounds that followed. Their account was disjointed, filtered through terror and exhaustion. "You said they were angry about pictures," Jack prompted. "What was your mother photographing?" Animals, Rose said. The sick ones, by the big creek where they're building. Jack felt a chill of recognition. Vista Ridge Properties had begun construction on a luxury resort development along Coldwater Creek at the forest's eastern boundary. Environmental protests had been ongoing for months. Was your mother working? With anyone, friends, colleagues? The twins exchanged one of their telepathic glances. Mr. Green sometimes, Lily offered. He wears funny bow ties. Martin Green, the environmental attorney who'd been spearheading opposition to the development. The connection made Jack's unease deepen. A knock at the door sent the twins scrambling. Beneath the table, their half-eaten sandwiches abandoned. Jack motioned for them to stay down as he approached the door, hand moving instinctively to the knife at his belt. Through the window, he recognized Deputy Cruz's uniform. He exhaled slowly, but didn't relax completely. Opening the door just enough to block the interior view, he nodded greeting. Deputy, Cruz's dark eyes narrowed slightly at his unusual stance. Jack, just checking in. Got a call about a woman missing from a cottage on the East Ridge. Thought you might have noticed anything unusual on your rounds. Jack kept his expression neutral despite the jolt of confirmation. Nothing specific. Location, small place off Juniper Road. Neighbor reported hearing a disturbance yesterday evening. She studied his face. You okay? You seem tense. Fine, Jack replied. Just tired. Been a long patrol. Cruz seemed unconvinced but didn't press. Well, if you notice anything, call it in. Woman's name is Clara Harper, has twin daughters who might be with her. From beneath the table came a small, involuntary sound, quickly stifled, but audible in the cabin's quiet. Cruz's head tilted. Her attention sharpening. You have company, Holloway. Jack made a decision in that moment that would either save the twins or put them all in danger. He stepped back, opening the door wider. You better come in, Melissa. But before you do, I need your word that this stays between us. At least for now. Deputy Cruz's expression shifted from suspicion to stunned concern as the twin girls emerged hesitantly from beneath the table. Duke positioned himself protectively between the children and this new arrival, though his tail offered a cautious wag of recognition. Jack, what the hell? Cruz kept her voice low, professional training overriding her surprise. They found them under Whitewater Bridge, Jack explained. Hiding, scared half to death. Cruz crouched to the twins' eye level, her demeanor softening instantly. Hello there. I'm Deputy Cruz. Are you Lily and Rose Harper? The girls pressed closer together, neither confirming nor denying their identities. Jack noticed how they assessed Cruz, calculating in that uncanny way children have of sensing trustworthiness. It's okay, Jack assured them. Deputy Cruz is one of the good ones. Lily spoke first, her voice barely audible. Are you going to take us away? Cruz glanced at Jack before answering. Right now, I just want to make sure you're safe. Can you tell me what happened to your mother? The twins recounted their story again, the men arriving, their mother's urgent instructions to flee, the sounds of violence that followed. Cruz listened without interrupting, her expression carefully controlled, though Jack caught the tightening at the corners of her mouth. When they finished, Cruz straightened and motioned Jack outside. Stay here with Duke, she told the twins. We'll be right outside the door. On the porch, Cruz's professional composure cracked. This is serious, Jack. I need to report finding these children. You heard what they said, Jack countered. Someone with authority is involved. What if reporting them puts them in more danger? And harboring them could cost you your job, or worse. Cruz ran a hand through her short hair. The sheriff's department has already classified this as a possible domestic situation. They're looking for the father. Is there one in the picture? None on record. Harper's a single mother. No father listed on birth certificates. Jack glanced through the window at the twins, who watched them with identical expressions of wary attention. Give me 24 hours to check her cottage myself. If these bad men are connected to Vista Ridge, there might be evidence there before it disappears. Cruz's eyes narrowed. You think this is about the development? The girls mentioned their mother was photographing dead wildlife near the construction site. Working with Martin Green, the environmental attorney? Cruz sighed. That complicates things. Vista Ridge has half the county board in their pocket. Exactly why we need to be careful about who knows where these kids are. Cruz studied him with professional assessment. This isn't like you, Jack, getting involved in something messy. People messy. Jack's hand moved unconsciously to his breast pocket, where a faded photograph was tucked inside his ranger manual. Himself and a young girl standing at a forest lookout, both smiling in a way he'd forgotten how to do. He hadn't looked at it in years, but always kept it close. Some situations don't give you a choice, he said finally. Cruz checked her watch. 24 hours. Then we do this by the book. Back inside, the twins had barely moved, their eyes tracking the adult's return. Are we in trouble? Rose asked. No, sweetheart, Cruz assured her. But we need your help to find your mom. Can you tell me exactly where your cottage is? Lily described the location with surprising precision for a child. The turnoff from Juniper Road, the pine with the lightning scar, the red mailbox. Cruz made notes, then prepared to leave. Jack will look after you tonight, she told them. I'm going to see what I can find out. You're brave girls. Your mother would be proud. After Cruz departed, an awkward silence filled the cabin. Jack had lived alone so long he'd forgotten how to share space, especially with children. He cleared his throat. You both need rest. You can take the bed. I'll use the chair. The twins eyed the narrow bed, then Jack, then each other. We don't want to take your bed, Rose said politely. I insist, Jack replied, with the gruff gentleness that had become his trademark, with the occasional lost hiker. As he helped them settle, Lily noticed the corner of the photograph peeking from Jack's pocket. Who's that? She asked. Jack hesitated, then carefully removed the worn image. My daughter, Sarah. Where is she? Rose asked with a child's direct curiosity. Far away, Jack said simply. In Arizona with her mother. I haven't seen her in a long time. Is she lost too? Lily's question carried innocent cruelty. Jack tucked the photo away. In a manner of speaking. Get some sleep now. The twins curled together like puppies, their small bodies forming a protective circle. Within minutes, exhaustion claimed them. Jack watched their breathing settle into rhythm, struck by how vulnerable they looked in sleep. His radio vibrated, a text message from Cruz. Cottage secured. Signs of struggle. Blood on floor, no body. We'll check hospitals. Be careful. Jack looked back at the sleeping children, these strangers who had suddenly become his responsibility. In the gathering darkness outside, something cracked, a branch breaking under deliberate weight. Duke's ears pricked up. He rose silently, hackles raising as he moved to the window. Someone was watching the cabin. Dawn broke over Pinecrest Forest in ribbons of gold and amber. Jack hadn't slept. The night had passed in vigilant silence after Duke's alert, though whatever or whoever had been outside the cabin hadn't approached. The twins still slumbered in his bed, their identical faces peaceful in sleep, momentarily free from fear. Jack moved quietly to the kitchenette, brewing coffee strong enough to cut through his exhaustion. His ranger duties would need attention today, a responsibility he couldn't simply abandon. Yet these children now represented a more urgent obligation. His phone buzzed with a text from Cruz. Cottage processed. Sheriff closed case as B&E gone wrong. No mention of environmental angle. Something's off, Jack frowned. A breaking and entering didn't explain the twins' terror or their mother's apparent instructions to hide. Someone was steering the investigation away from Vista Ridge as he contemplated his next move. A small voice came from behind him. Your fox has a rip. Jack turned to find Lily examining her stuffed animal, her small fingers probing a torn seam along its back. Rose remained asleep, her arms stretched across the now empty space beside her. We can fix him, Jack offered. Reaching for his field repair kit, Lily shook her head, continuing her careful exploration of the tear. Mama fixed him before. Her fingers disappeared into the stuffed toy's batting, her expression shifting from curiosity to surprise as they encountered something solid. Jack watched as the child extracted a small object from within the fox, a USB drive. No larger than a postage stamp wrapped in plastic. Mama must have put it there, Lily whispered. Her eyes wide with discovery, Jack's pulse quickened as he gently took the drive. If Clara Harper had hidden evidence inside her daughter's toy, she'd anticipated serious danger. The drive might contain what she'd discovered about Vista Ridge, and potentially what had made her a target. "This could be important," Jack explained, keeping his voice gentle. "May I see what's on it?" Lily nodded solemnly. "Mama said sometimes the truth needs to hide until it finds the right person." Jack's ancient laptop whirred to life. As the USB contents loaded, he was confronted with dozens of image files and documents, all meticulously organized in folders labeled by date and location. The photos showed pristine wilderness transformed by construction, clear-cutting beyond permitted boundaries, waste being dumped directly into Coldwater Creek, dead wildlife along contaminated banks. Clara Harper had documented systematic environmental violations by Vista Ridge Properties over months of surveillance. Rose had awakened, joining her sister at the table. "Is that Mama's secret work?" "I think so," Jack confirmed, scrolling through damning evidence of corporate malfeasance. One folder, labeled Blackwood Private, contained something different. Photographs of Thomas Blackwood, Vista Ridge's CEO, meeting with county officials in contexts that suggested impropriety. Financial documents, permits approved despite failing environmental impact studies. The final document was a draft exposé prepared for submission to national media, co-authored by Clara Harper and Martin Green. Its title, Poisoned Paradise: How Vista Ridge Properties Corrupted Pinecrest County. "This is why they came after your mother," Jack murmured. More to himself than the girls, the twins looked at the screen with solemn comprehension beyond their years. "Mama said the truth is stronger than bad men," Rose offered. "But sometimes the truth needs protectors." A sharp knock at the door shattered the moment. Jack closed the laptop, motioning for the twins to move away from the windows. Duke positioned himself between the door and the children, hackles raised. Through the curtain, Jack recognized Martin Green's distinctive bow tie and wire-rimmed glasses. The environmental attorney stood alone on the porch, clutching his briefcase with white-knuckled intensity. "Ranger Holloway." Green called. "I need to speak with you." "It's about Clara Harper." Jack hesitated. Green's presence couldn't be coincidence, but was he ally or threat? The USB drive in his hand might represent life, changing evidence or a death sentence depending on who knew of its existence. "He works with Mama," Lily whispered. "He has funny ties, but how did he know to come here?" Jack countered softly, Rose's face clouded with uncertainty. The bad men knew things too. Jack weighed his options. Green had been named in the exposé as co-author. If genuine, he was likely an ally. If compromised, he could lead Clara's attackers directly to her children. "Stay back," Jack instructed the twins, pocketing the USB drive. To Duke, he commanded, "Guard." The German shepherd positioned himself before the girls, alert and ready. Jack checked his sidearm, then moved to the door. Truth needed protectors indeed, and for now, he was all these children had. Jack opened the door just enough to block the view inside, his body language clearly unwelcoming. "How did you find me, Green?" Martin Green stood on the porch, a slight man with the disheveled appearance of someone who hadn't slept. His signature bow tie, today a forest green with tiny pine trees, was askew. "Deputy Cruz told me," he replied, his voice low and urgent. "Said she couldn't explain over the phone, but that Clara's daughters might be here." Jack studied the attorney's face, looking for signs of deception. "And why would that bring you to my doorstep at dawn?" Green glanced nervously over his shoulder. "Because I might be the reason Clara's in danger." His hands fumbled with his tweed jacket, retrieving a small, worn book, a pocket constitution, its edges frayed from constant reference. "May I come in?" "I shouldn't be seen here," Jack hesitated, then stepped aside. Green entered, stopping short at the sight of Duke standing guard before the twins. His expression shifted from anxiety to visible relief. "Thank God," he breathed. "You're both safe." The twins regarded him warily, neither moving from behind Duke's protective stance. You know them? Jack asked. I've been working with Clara for months, Green confirmed, keeping his distance from the children. These young ladies have often been in my office while their mother and I compiled evidence, Lily spoke up. He makes hot chocolate with extra marshmallows. Rose nodded agreement. And he has a fish tank with a clownfish named Justice. These details, impossible for an imposter to know, eased some of Jack's suspicion. What happened to Clara? Green sank into a chair, suddenly looking older than his 50-some years. We were ready to file a federal case against Vista Ridge. Clara had documented everything: illegal dumping, falsified environmental impact studies, bribery of county officials. Thomas Blackwood found out. The USB drive, Jack said. Green's eyes widened. You have it? Clara said she'd hidden it somewhere safe. Jack nodded toward the stuffed fox. Inside the toy. Smart move. That's Clara, Green said with sad admiration. Always 3 steps ahead. He tapped his pocket constitution. She used to tease me about carrying this everywhere. Said I was the only person she knew who quoted the EPA regulations verbatim. Where is she? Jack pressed. Green's expression darkened. I don't know for certain. 2 days ago she called me in a panic. Said men were watching her cottage. I offered my guest room, but she refused. Said it was the first place they'd look. She was going to activate her contingency plan after getting the girls to safety. What contingency plan? She never told me details. Said it was safer that way. Green looked at the twins. Clara built an extensive case, but she kept certain evidence separate. Insurance, she called it. Jack considered this new information. Why come to me? Why not the authorities? Green laughed bitterly. Half the sheriff's department is on Blackwood's payroll. The county prosecutor plays golf with him weekly. Even the state environmental office has been suspiciously unresponsive to our complaints. He patted his pocket constitution again, a habitual gesture. When systems fail, you find good people instead. And Deputy Cruz pointed you to me, Jack concluded. Said you were one of the few straight arrows left in the county. Green confirmed. Her words. Jack felt the weight of responsibility settling more firmly on his shoulders. These children need protection while we figure this out. Somewhere neither Blackwood nor corrupted officials will look. Green nodded thoughtfully. I have a cabin, completely off-grid. No paper trail connecting it to me. Built by my grandfather before property records were digitized. We're not separating, Lily interjected firmly, reaching for her sister's hand. No one's separating you, Jack assured her. But we might need to move somewhere safer. The cabin phone rang, an unusual occurrence that made everyone freeze. Jack answered cautiously. Holloway, Jack, it's Cruz. Her voice was tight with controlled urgency. You need to move those girls. Now, Sheriff just dispatched units to your cabin for a routine search related to the Harper case. How long? 20 minutes, maybe less. And Jack? Blackwood himself is with them. Jack's mind raced through options. We'll be gone in 5. As he hung up, Green was already gathering the twins' few belongings. My car's hidden down the service road. They won't see it from the main approach. Jack grabbed his emergency pack and signaled Duke to attention. Girls, we need to leave quickly. Stay close to Duke. Rose looked up at him, her small face serious. Are the bad men coming? Jack couldn't bring himself to lie. Yes, but we won't be here when they arrive. As they prepared to slip out the back, Green paused. Blackwood's reach is extensive, Holloway. Once you're involved, there's no walking away. Jack thought of his peaceful, solitary life in these woods, now irrevocably altered by 2 small girls and their missing mother. I'm already involved, he said simply. Outside, a vehicle approached in the distance. The first. Rumble of a gathering storm. Green's cabin was less a structure than a disappearing act. A frame nestled so perfectly among ancient pines that it seemed to vanish when viewed from certain angles. Located on an unmarked fire road 10 miles into the deepest part of the forest, it represented exactly what they needed: invisibility. My grandfather built it during the logging boom, Green explained as he unlocked the door. He was the county's first environmental prosecutor. not a popular position back then. Inside was surprisingly comfortable. Wood stove, propane-powered refrigerator, solar panels for minimal electricity. A wall of bookcases dominated one side, while fishing gear and hiking equipment hung neatly on the other. The space smelled of cedar and old books. No phone, no internet, Green continued. But there's a shortwave radio for emergencies. Completely untraceable, the twins explored with cautious curiosity, Duke following protectively. Jack unfolded a detailed map on the kitchen table, a topographical survey of Pinecrest County that Green had retrieved from his briefcase. Clara marked contamination sites here, Green explained, pointing to red circles along Coldwater. Greek, soil samples showed chemical compounds consistent with industrial waste, specifically the type used in Vista Ridge's proprietary construction. Materials. Jack studied the map, noting Clara's precise handwriting in the margins, GPS coordinates, dates, wildlife impact notes. Some areas were connected with dotted lines, others highlighted in yellow. A pattern emerged. The contamination follows underground water channels, Jack observed. These yellow markings, they're aquifer connections, aren't they? Green nodded grimly. Blackwood's not just poisoning the creek. He's contaminating the county's primary water source. In 5 years, it would have been a public health disaster. Would have been. With this evidence, we can stop it, Green affirmed. But only if we find Clara. She documented chain of custody for all samples. Without her testimony, it's circumstantial. Jack's finger traced a faint path, marked in blue, that led deep into the mountains. At its terminus, Clara had written last resort with a small star. What's this? Green adjusted his glasses. I don't know. Clara mentioned having a fallback location, but never specified. Said it was safer if only she knew. Mama's special place, Lily said quietly, appearing beside them. Where the eagles nest. Both men turned to her in surprise. You know this location? Jack asked gently. Lily nodded. It's where we go for birthday picnics. Only special people get to know about it. Rose joined her sister. It's hard to find. You have to follow the 3 sisters. 3 sisters? Green looked puzzled. The pine trees that grew together, Rose explained, as if to someone very slow. They point the way. Jack studied the twins' earnest faces. Could you find this place again? The girls exchanged one of their telepathic glances. Maybe, Lily answered. But Mama said never to tell anyone except in an emergency. This is definitely an emergency, Jack assured her. Before they could explore this further, Duke growled low in his throat, a warning. Seconds later, the distant sound of vehicles reached them. Green moved to the window, peering through a narrow gap in the curtains. County Sheriff SUVs. 2 of them. How did they find us so quickly? Jack joined him, watching the vehicles stop at the beginning of the fire road, unable to navigate the rough terrain further. Men emerged, consulting what appeared to be a tracking device. They're not following our vehicle, Jack realized. They're tracking something else. His eyes fell on the twins' backpack, the emergency pack their mother had prepared. With sudden intuition, he upended it on the table. Among the contents tumbled a small, blinking device, no bigger than a button. A tracker, Green whispered in horror. Clara's own emergency pack was compromised, Jack finished grimly. They've been... Jack nodded toward the stuffed fox inside the toy. Smart move. That's Clara, Green said with sad admiration. Always 3 steps ahead. He tapped his pocket constitution. She used to tease me about carrying this everywhere. Said I was the only person she knew who quoted the EPA regulations verbatim. Where is she? Jack pressed. Green's expression darkened. I don't know for certain. 2 days ago she called me in a panic. Said men were watching her cottage. I offered my guest room, but she refused. Said it was the first place they'd look. She was going to activate her contingency plan after getting the girls to safety. What contingency plan? She never told me details. Said it was safer that way. Green looked at the twins. Clara built an extensive case, but she kept certain evidence separate. Insurance, she called it. Jack considered this new information. Why come to me? Why not the authorities? Green laughed bitterly. Half the sheriff's department is on Blackwood's payroll. The county prosecutor plays golf with him weekly. Even the state environmental office has been suspiciously unresponsive to our complaints. He patted his pocket constitution again, a habitual gesture. When systems fail, you find good people instead, and Deputy Cruz pointed you to me, Jack concluded. Said you were one of the few straight arrows left in the county, Green confirmed. Her words. Jack felt the weight of responsibility settling more firmly on his shoulders. These children need protection while we figure this out. Somewhere neither Blackwood nor corrupted officials will look. Green nodded thoughtfully. I have a cabin, completely off-grid. No paper trail connecting it to me. Built by my grandfather before property records were digitized. We're not separating, Lily interjected firmly, reaching for her sister's hand. No one's separating you, Jack assured her. But we might need to move somewhere safer. The cabin phone rang, an unusual occurrence that made everyone freeze. Jack answered cautiously. Holloway. Jack, it's Cruz. Her voice was tight with controlled urgency. You need to move those girls. Now. Sheriff just dispatched units to your cabin for a routine search related to the Harper case. How long? 20 minutes, maybe less. And Jack? Blackwood himself is with them. Jack's mind raced through options. We'll be gone in 5. As he hung up, Green was already gathering the twins' few belongings. My car's hidden down the service road. They won't see it from the main approach. Jack grabbed his emergency pack and signaled Duke to attention. Girls, we need to leave quickly. Stay close to Duke. Rose looked up at him, her small face serious. Are the bad men coming? Jack couldn't bring himself to lie. Yes, but we won't be here when they arrive. As they prepared to slip out the back, Green paused. Blackwood's reach is extensive, Holloway. Once you're involved, there's no walking away. Jack thought of his peaceful, solitary life in these woods, now irrevocably altered by 2 small girls and their missing mother. I'm already involved, he said simply. Outside, a vehicle approached in the distance, the first rumble of a gathering storm. Green's cabin was less a structure than a disappearing act, a frame nestled so perfectly among ancient pines that it seemed to vanish when viewed from certain angles. Located on an unmarked fire road 10 miles into the deepest part of the forest, it represented exactly what they needed: invisibility. My grandfather built it during the logging boom, Green explained as he unlocked the door. He was the county's first environmental prosecutor, not a popular position back then. Inside was surprisingly comfortable: wood stove, propane-powered refrigerator, solar panels for minimal electricity. A wall of bookcases dominated one side, while fishing gear and hiking equipment hung neatly on the other. The space smelled of cedar and old books. No phone, no internet, Green continued. But there's a shortwave radio for emergencies. Completely untraceable, the twins explored with cautious curiosity, Duke following protectively. Jack unfolded a detailed map on the kitchen table, a topographical survey of Pinecrest County that Green had retrieved from his briefcase. Clara marked contamination sites here, Green explained, pointing to red circles along Coldwater. Creek soil samples showed chemical compounds consistent with industrial waste, specifically the type used in Vista Ridge's proprietary construction materials. Jack studied the map, noting Clara's precise handwriting in the margins: GPS coordinates, dates, wildlife impact notes. Some areas were connected with dotted lines, others highlighted in yellow. A pattern emerged. The contamination follows underground water channels, Jack observed. These yellow markings, they're aquifer connections, aren't they? Green nodded grimly. Blackwood's not just poisoning the creek. He's contaminating the county's primary water source. In 5 years, it would have been a public health disaster, would have been. With this evidence, we can stop it, Green affirmed. But only if we find Clara. She documented chain of custody for all samples. Without her testimony, it's circumstantial. Jack's finger traced a faint path marked in blue that led deep into the mountains. At its terminus, Clara had written, "Last resort," with a small star. What's this? Green adjusted his glasses. I don't know. Clara mentioned having a fallback location, but never specified. Said it was safer if only she knew. Mama's special place, Lily said quietly, appearing beside them. Where the eagles nest. Both men turned to her in surprise. You know this location? Jack asked gently. Lily nodded. It's where we go for birthday picnics. Only special people get to know about it, Rose joined her sister. It's hard to find. You have to follow the three sisters. Three sisters? Green looked puzzled. The pine trees that grew together, Rose explained, as if to someone very slow. They point the way. Jack studied the twins' earnest faces. Could you find this place again? The girls exchanged one of their telepathic glances. Maybe, Lily answered. But Mama said never to tell anyone except in an emergency. This is definitely an emergency, Jack assured her. Before they could explore this further, Duke growled low in his throat. A warning. Seconds later, the distant sound of vehicles reached them. Green moved to the window, peering through a narrow gap in the curtains. County Sheriff SUVs. 2 of them. How did they find us so quickly? Jack joined him, watching the vehicles stop at the beginning of the fire road, unable to navigate the rough terrain further. Men emerged, consulting what appeared to be a tracking device. They're not following our vehicle, Jack realized. They're tracking something else. His eyes fell on the twins' backpack, the emergency pack their mother had prepared. With sudden intuition, he upended it on the table. Among the contents tumbled a small, blinking device no bigger than a button. A tracker, Green whispered in horror. Clara's own emergency pack was compromised, Jack finished grimly. They've been able to follow the girls from the beginning. Green's face paled. We led them straight here. The men exchanged a look of understanding. They needed to move immediately. Jack knelt before the twins. We need to go to your mother's special place now. Can you guide us there? The twins nodded solemnly. Rose reached for the map, her small finger tracing the blue line. We need to cross the big river, then find the 3 sisters. Green gathered essential supplies, water, food, first aid kit. Jack crushed the tracking device under his boot. The river's 2 miles east, he said, calculating. If we move fast through the undergrowth, we can reach it before they organize a proper search. Green hesitated, glancing at his books, his sanctuary. I'll stay and delay them. Give you time to get away. That's too dangerous, Jack protested. I'm an officer of the court confronting trespassers on my private property, Green replied, his voice finding strength. Even Blackwood can't simply make me disappear without questions. He removed his bow tie, suddenly looking fierce rather than academic. Besides, they don't know I've given you the map. It's our best evidence besides the USB drive. Jack recognized the logic, though he disliked leaving the attorney behind. We'll find Clara, he promised. Green nodded, his expression resolute. When you do, get her to the Federal Environmental Office in Portland. I have contacts there beyond Blackwood's reach. Outside, the men's voices grew closer. Decision time had run out. Take the back trail, Green instructed, pointing toward a nearly invisible path behind the cabin. It follows the ridge. They won't expect that route. Jack gathered the twins close, securing the map inside his jacket. Stay with Duke. Don't make a sound. As they slipped out the back door, Jack glanced back at Martin Green, a small man preparing to face giant forces, armed with nothing but law books and moral courage. Some protectors wore ranger badges. Others wore bow ties. The ridge trail narrowed to barely a foot wide in places, hugging the contour of the mountain like a lifeline. Jack led the way, with Duke ranging ahead as scout. The twins followed in perfect synchronization, their small hands occasionally steadying each other on difficult sections. Despite their age, they moved through the wilderness with remarkable confidence. Children raised in these woods by a mother who taught them to see sanctuary where others saw only wilderness. There, Lily pointed toward 3 distinctive pine trees that had grown so close together they appeared to be a single trunk splitting into 3. The 3 sisters. Jack consulted the map, confirming they were on course. The blue line Clara had drawn continued. Past this landmark, following what appeared to be a game trail, not on any official Forest Service maps. Your mother knew these woods well, Jack observed. Rose nodded. Mama said knowing secret paths keeps you safe when bad people look for you. The simple statement carried a heavy implication. Clara Harper had been preparing her daughters for danger long before it arrived. Jack wondered what she had known or suspected that had prompted such cautious parenting. Duke suddenly froze ahead, his posture alert. A low growl rumbled in his chest. "Stay here," Jack whispered to the twins, drawing his sidearm. "Duke, guard!" The German shepherd positioned himself before the children as Jack moved forward, scanning the dense undergrowth. 20 yards ahead, the trail descended into a small ravine where a seasonal creek had carved a path through the forest floor. Something colorful caught his eye amid the browns and greens of the forest. A splash of blue silk caught on a branch. Jack approached cautiously, aware of potential traps. The fabric was a woman's scarf, high quality, with the initials CH embroidered in one corner, Clara Harper. The fabric was torn and stained with what was unmistakably dried blood. His stomach tightened. He photographed the scarf in place before carefully removing it from the branch. The blood pattern suggested it had been pressed against. A wound, perhaps a head injury based on the concentration. But there was something deliberate about its placement, too visible in an environment where a skilled outdoors woman like Clara would know how to leave no trace. A message, then. But for whom? Jack returned to the twins, concealing the scarf in his pocket. Their keen eyes missed nothing. "Did you find something?" Lily asked. Jack considered lying, then thought better of it. These children had endured too much already to be sheltered from difficult truths. "I found a scarf that might belong to your mother." The twins' reaction was immediate. "The blue one?" they asked in unison. Jack nodded, removing it partially from his pocket. "Mama always wears it when she's taking important pictures," Rose explained. "She says it's her lucky charm." Lily's face grew solemn. "There's blood on it." "Yes," Jack admitted, "but not enough to suggest a serious injury, and I think she left it deliberately, like a breadcrumb." "Like Hansel and Gretel?" Rose asked, her literary reference incongruously sophisticated. "Something like that," Jack agreed. "Your mother is leaving us signs to follow." This interpretation visibly relieved the twins, their shoulders relaxing slightly. Jack studied the map again, noting that the blue line continued another mile before reaching the last resort marking. If Clara was leaving a trail, they were on the right path. A distant shout echoed through the trees. Searchers from the sheriff's department, still far away, but moving in their direction. Jack folded the map, tucking it securely away. "We need to keep moving," he urged. "Stay quiet and stay close." The twins' faces set with determination as they continued along the hidden trail. Jack kept the blood-stained scarf, a tangible connection to the woman they were searching for, and evidence of what had been done to her. They hiked in silence for another 30 minutes before the forest opened to reveal a breathtaking vista. A steep cliff overlooking Pinecrest Valley, with the distant shimmer of Coldwater Lake visible through the haze. The trail appeared to end at the cliff edge. "Now we go down," Lily said with certainty, pointing to a nearly invisible path that zigzagged down the cliff face. Jack assessed the treacherous descent with professional concern. "That's too dangerous for you both." The twins exchanged one of their communicative glances. "Mama takes us this way every year," Rose insisted. "We know how to do it." "There's a rope," Lily added, moving to a nearby pine where, sure enough, a weathered climbing rope had been secured around the trunk, dropping over the cliff edge. "Mama taught us how to use it." Jack examined the rope. It was proper climbing equipment, professionally secured and recently maintained. Clara Harper continued to surprise him with her thoroughness. "I'll go first," Jack decided. "Then help you both down. Duke will have to find his own path. He's good at that." As he prepared to descend, Jack took one last look at the blood-stained scarf. Clara was alive, injured, hunted, but alive, and leaving signs for someone to follow. He hoped they weren't already too late. The descent down the cliff face was harrowing, even for Jack, with his decades of wilderness experience. The twins, however, navigated it with the confident precision of young mountain goats, their small hands finding natural holds invisible to adult eyes. Their mother had trained them well. At the bottom, a narrow path led through a dense thicket of blackberry brambles, a natural deterrent to casual hikers. Beyond this thorny gateway, the forest opened into a small hidden valley cradled between steep ridges. A crystal-clear stream bisected the sanctuary, feeding into a pool beside which stood a humble structure, a one-room hunter's cabin, weathered by seasons but solidly built. "Mama's special place," Rose whispered with reverence. Duke circled the perimeter nose, working the air currents, before giving a soft woof that Jack recognized as all clear. Still, Jack approached cautiously, signaling the twins to wait with Duke. The cabin door was secured with a simple padlock. Jack examined it for signs of tampering but found none. Underneath a smooth river stone by the step, the kind children would naturally select for skipping, he found a key. "Mama always hides things in plain sight," Lily commented, having disregarded his instruction to stay back. "She says that's where people forget to look." The padlock opened with a satisfying click. Jack drew his sidearm before pushing the door open, but the cabin was empty of human presence. What it contained, however, was remarkable. A miniature research station. One wall was covered with a detailed map of Pinecrest County, larger and more elaborate than Green's version. Colored pins and string created a complex web connecting various locations. A desk held water testing equipment, soil sample containers, and a logbook filled with Clara's precise handwriting. She made her headquarters here, Jack realized aloud. The twins entered behind him, their eyes scanning the familiar space with clear relief. This was a place of safety in their experience, associated with happy memories. "The secret box should still be here," Rose said, moving toward the stone fireplace. "Mama always checks it first thing." Jack watched as the child confidently reached up the chimney, her small hand disappearing into a hidden crevice. Her face scrunched in concentration, then brightened as she extracted a waterproof container. Inside was a disposable camera in a sealed plastic bag. "Mama says pictures don't lie," Lily explained solemnly, "and important ones need special hiding places." Jack carefully examined the camera, the type sold to tourists and underwater photographers, with 27 exposures marked on the counter window. 26 had been used. "Your mother took photos with this?" he asked. The twins nodded in synchronization. "Special ones," Rose elaborated. "The ones too dangerous for her regular camera." Jack's estimation of Clara Harper continued to grow. She'd created redundant systems to protect her evidence, anticipating that her regular equipment might be compromised or destroyed. The cabin contained other emergency supplies, canned food, bottled water, medical kit, even changes of clothing for the twins. Clara had prepared this place as both sanctuary and fallback position. But where was she? The answer came from Lily, who had wandered to the desk. "Look," she said, pointing to the logbook open to the most recent entry. "Mama's special code." Jack examined the page. What appeared to be routine field notes contained a line of numbers and letters that didn't fit the pattern. RPS 27 WTF Federal. "It's how we played our secret game," Rose explained. "RPS is rock, paper, scissors. That means emergency." Jack considered the rest. "WTF could be Whitewater Falls," he suggested, recalling the landmark near the northern boundary of the forest. "And federal means call the special people, not the regular police," Lily finished. "Mama said some bad people look like good people, so we need the highest up good people." The sophisticated reasoning behind the simple code impressed Jack. Clara had prepared her daughters to distinguish between local authorities who might be corrupted and federal officials beyond Blackwood's influence, exactly what Green had suggested. "When did she write this?" Jack asked, checking for a date. "Yesterday morning," Lily answered confidently. That's her Thursday pen. Blue for weekdays, black for weekends. Such certainty couldn't be questioned. If Clara had been here yesterday, she was alive. Injured based on the blood-stained scarf, but alive and mobile. A sudden movement from Duke at the door refocused their attention. The German shepherd stood alert, ears forward, sensing something beyond human perception. Seconds later, the distant beat of helicopter rotors echoed through the valley. "Is that Mama?" Rose asked hopefully. Jack moved to the doorway, scanning the sky. The black helicopter emerging over the ridge was unmarked, no police or rescue insignia. His instincts flared in warning. "Get your emergency packs," he instructed the twins. "We need to move, now." As the children scrambled to comply, Jack pocketed the disposable camera and tore the coded page from the logbook. Clara's message was clear. Whitewater Falls, federal authorities. Someone trusted was waiting there, perhaps Clara herself. The helicopter banked, beginning a search pattern over the valley. Blackwood had resources beyond local law enforcement, it seemed. The race to reach Whitewater Falls had just become more urgent and more dangerous. Whitewater Falls thundered with spring runoff, a 60-foot cascade that transformed snowmelt into roaring white fury before joining the calmer waters of Coldwater Creek below. Mist rose from the impact zone, creating small rainbows in the afternoon sunlight. Under different circumstances, Jack would have appreciated the natural spectacle. Today, he scanned it with tactical precision, looking for signs of human presence. The journey from Clara's hidden cabin had been tense. The helicopter had circled the valley twice before moving on, giving them just enough time to slip into the dense forest on the opposite ridge. The twins had set a punishing pace along hidden game trails, navigating by landmarks only they recognized. "Mama brings us here every summer solstice," Lily explained as they approached the falls from the seldom-used western approach. "She says the water remembers everything it touches." Jack positioned the twins behind a natural stone outcropping, with Duke as guardian. "Stay here while I check the area." The falls created a natural security advantage. The constant roar masked small sounds, while the perpetual mist limited visibility. Jack moved carefully along the shoreline, looking for Clara's designated meeting point, 27, the number from her coded message. Jack counted steps from the base of the falls, reaching a hollowed-out log, partially submerged in the creek. Inside, protected by a waterproof bag, he found a metal container. His pulse quickened as he extracted it, checking for booby traps before opening the lid. Inside lay a federal badge and ID card for the Environmental Protection Agency. The name on the credentials, Catherine Mills, Senior Special Agent. Attached was a sealed envelope addressed to the guardian of my children. Jack opened it with steady hands, revealing a handwritten letter. "If you're reading this, you've earned my daughter's trust. No small achievement. I'm alive but injured and under observation at Pinecrest Memorial Hospital under an assumed name. Thomas Blackwood's security personnel are watching all hospital admissions. I've been gathering evidence against Vista Ridge for 8 months as a confidential informant for the EPA's Criminal Investigation Division. Agent Mills is my handler. This badge will get you past hospital security to her. The final evidence we need is on the disposable camera in my emergency cache. Vista Ridge is not just dumping chemicals. They're testing a new construction compound that leaches toxins intentionally to drive down property values in targeted areas. Blackwood plans to buy the contaminated land at reduced prices for Phase 2 of his development. If I don't survive, the photos and documentation in my cabin provide chain of custody for all evidence. My daughters can identify Blackwood's head of security as the man who attacked me. Trust no one in local law enforcement except Deputy Cruz. Get my girls and the evidence to Agent Mills. Clara Harper. Jack reread the letter, absorbing its implications. Clara was alive, hospitalized but alive. And she'd been working with federal authorities all along. He returned to the twins, who watched him expectantly. "I found a message from your mother," he said gently. "She's alive." Their identical faces transformed with hope. "Where is she?" They asked in unison. "In the hospital in Pinecrest, using a different name to stay safe." Jack chose his next words carefully. "She's hurt but being taken care of. And she wants us to meet someone who's been helping her, an Agent Mills from the EPA. Rose's face brightened with recognition. "The lady with the shiny shoes. She came to our house sometimes when the men in suits weren't watching." This confirmation of Clara's letter strengthened Jack's confidence in their course of action. The disposable camera in his pocket contained the final evidence needed to bring down Blackwood's operation. "We need to get to Pinecrest," Jack explained, "but we have to be careful. The bad men are still looking for us." Lily's expression turned solemn. "Will they hurt Mama again if they find her?" The question hung heavy in the misty air. Jack wouldn't lie to them. "They might try. That's why we need to move quickly and stay hidden." Duke suddenly growled, his attention fixed on the trail behind them. Jack signaled for silence, drawing his sidearm as he moved to investigate. Through the trees, he spotted two men in tactical gear with Vista Ridge logos on their jackets, moving methodically along their path from the cabin. Private security, not law enforcement, which meant they weren't constrained by constitutional limitations. Jack retreated to the twins. "Blackwood's men are coming. We need a diversion." Rose's eyes widened. "The secret tunnel." "What tunnel?" Jack asked. "Behind the falls," Lily explained. "Mama showed us last summer. Old miners made it." Jack hadn't seen any tunnel entrance during his inspection, but he'd learned to trust the twins' knowledge of their mother's secrets. "Show me." The girls led him along a narrow, treacherous path that skirted the very edge of the falls. Halfway up, concealed by the cascading water and decades of moss growth, a dark opening gaped in the rock face, just large enough for a person to enter in a crouch. "It goes all the way through the mountain," Rose said proudly. "Comes out near the old railroad tracks. The railroad tracks that led directly to Pinecrest town and the hospital where Clara waited." Jack made a quick decision, ushering the twins toward the hidden entrance. Behind them, voices grew louder as Blackwood's men approached. The falls. The hunt was intensifying. The mine tunnel was a testament to human determination, hand-carved through solid granite a century earlier by men seeking fortune in Pinecrest's brief mining boom. Water dripped from the low ceiling, and the air hung heavy with mineral scents and history. Jack led with his flashlight, the twins followed closely, and Duke brought up the rear, occasionally glancing behind with alert vigilance. "Mama says the miners gave up too soon," Lily whispered, her voice echoing slightly despite her hushed tone. "They were just 10 feet from a gold vein when they abandoned it. The tunnel narrowed in places, requiring them to proceed in single file. In others, it opened into small chambers where support beams, now green with age and moisture, prevented the mountain from reclaiming the space. In one such chamber, Rose spotted something on a stone shelf carved into the wall. "Look, the old light!" Jack directed his beam toward a dust-covered object, an antique miner's lantern, its brass tarnished but intact. He lifted it carefully, surprised by its solid weight. "Mama lights it when we come through," Rose explained. "She says it honors the men who built this path." Jack examined the lantern. The oil reservoir still contained fuel, protected from evaporation by a well-designed seal. These small details about Clara Harper, her respect for history, her attention to maintaining resources others had forgotten, continued to build a picture of a remarkable woman. "Let's honor them." "Then," Jack said, striking a match from his emergency kit. The lantern came to life with surprising brightness, casting warm golden light through the tunnel and creating dancing shadows on the rock walls. The twins' faces illuminated with childlike wonder, despite the circumstances of their journey. They continued deeper into the mountain, the ancient light guiding their way as it had guided miners generations before. Jack estimated they'd traveled nearly a mile when the tunnel began to slope upward. "We're almost through," Lily announced with the certainty of experience. "Listen," Jack paused. In the distance, barely audible, came the rhythmic rumble of a train passing. "The tracks are right outside the exit," Rose confirmed. "We have to wait until no trains are coming before we go out." "How far to Pinecrest from the exit?" Jack asked. 3 miles along the tracks," Lily answered. "Mama always brings her bird-watching backpack so people think we're just hiking." Jack considered their options. Following the tracks would be the most direct route to town, but also the most exposed. However, with darkness falling soon, they might manage to reach Pinecrest Hospital under cover of night. The tunnel ended at a heavy wooden door, reinforced with rusted metal bands. Jack extinguished the lantern before carefully easing it open a crack. Outside, twilight painted the forest in deepening blues and purples. The railroad tracks gleamed dully 20 yards away, cutting a straight path through the wilderness toward town. No sign of pursuit. Blackwood's men had likely continued searching the area around Whitewater Falls, unaware of the tunnel's existence. "We'll wait until full dark," Jack decided, "then follow the tracks to town." The twins accepted this without argument, settling against the tunnel wall with the resilience of children who had learned to adapt to difficult circumstances. Duke laid between them, his head on his paws, but his eyes alert. Jack used the time to examine the disposable camera more carefully. Whatever Clara had captured on this film was important enough to hide separately from her other evidence. Important enough that men had been willing to attack her for it. Getting it safely to Agent Mills was now their primary objective. As darkness fell, Jack's phone vibrated. A text from Deputy Cruz. "Green in custody. Blackwood claiming trespassing, but real charge is evidence tampering. Hospital has Jane Doe patient under guard. Be careful." The pieces were coming together. Clara was at Pinecrest Memorial under guard, likely Blackwood's private security, posing as protection. Green had been arrested on false charges to prevent him from accessing the legal system on Clara's behalf. And the disposable camera in Jack's pocket contained evidence that could break open the entire conspiracy. "Time to move," he told the twins, who immediately stood, straightening their clothing with the unconscious dignity of children trying to be brave. "Will we see Mama tonight?" Rhodes asked, hope making her voice younger. Jack considered his answer carefully. "We're going to try, but we need to be very careful. The bad men might be watching the hospital. Mama said if we ever got separated, we should look for the flowers," Lily offered. "Room 417. "How do you know that?" Jack asked, surprised. "It's our birthday," Rose explained. "April 17th. Mama always uses our birthday for important numbers, so we'll remember." Jack marveled again at Clara's foresight, creating memory aids her daughters could recall under stress. Room 417. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. Outside, the forest had surrendered to night. The moon provided just enough light to see the tracks stretching toward town, toward Clara, toward confrontation, toward the resolution of a conspiracy that had turned an environmental crime into attempted murder. Jack checked his sidearm, secured the evidence in his pocket, and nodded to the twins. "Stay close. We're going to bring this home." The antique lantern remained in the tunnel, its purpose fulfilled, like the miners who had built this passage. They had found their own path through the mountain of obstacles facing them. Pinecrest Memorial Hospital stood on the edge of town, its 5 stories of brick and glass illuminated against the night sky. By the time Jack and the twins reached the periphery of the property, it was nearly midnight. They had followed the railroad tracks until they intersected with County Road 27, then kept to the shadows as they approached the hospital from its least visible side. Jack surveyed the building from the cover of a maintenance shed. The main entrance was clearly visible, with a security guard stationed at the desk. More concerning were 2 men in dark suits positioned near the elevators. Not hospital security based on their alert posture and concealed earpieces. Blackwood's private security. "We can't just walk in," Jack murmured, more to himself than the twins. "The flower garden," Lily suggested, pointing to a side entrance near a small courtyard. "Mama says it's for the doctors when they're tired," Jack nodded appreciatively. The staff entrance would have less security than the main lobby. The challenge would be getting inside without credentials. His phone vibrated. Another text from Deputy Cruz. Northeast staff entrance. 10 minutes. Watch for Mills. Jack glanced at his watch, then guided the twins toward the indicated entrance. They positioned themselves behind a row of decorative shrubs with a clear view of the door. Duke settled silently beside them, his dark coat blending with the shadows. At precisely the 10-minute mark, a woman in hospital scrubs exited the staff door, pausing to light a cigarette. Her dark hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and nothing about her appearance suggested federal law enforcement, except for the alert way she scanned the surroundings while pretending to enjoy her cigarette. "That's the lady with the shiny shoes," Rose whispered. Jack studied the woman more carefully. Though wearing standard white nursing shoes now, he noticed the precision of her movements, the controlled economy that spoke of tactical training rather than medical background. He texted Cruz. Visual confirmation. Approaching with packages, the woman's posture shifted subtly as she checked her phone. She took one last drag from her cigarette before dropping it and grinding it underfoot. Her eyes flicked toward their position, a nearly imperceptible acknowledgement. "Wait for my signal," Jack instructed the twins. "Then move quickly to that door." No noise. The agent, Mills, retrieved something from her pocket and bent as if to tie her shoe. When she straightened, she left a small object on the ground before re-entering the building. Jack waited 30 seconds before approaching, keeping to the shadows. The object was a hospital ID badge in a protective case. He examined it carefully. Catherine Mills, RN, oncology, but the magnetic strip on the back would likely access more areas than a typical nurse's credentials. He signaled the twins, who darted across the open space with impressive stealth for children their age. Duke followed, keeping his body low to the ground. Jack swiped the badge at the card reader, breathing a sigh of relief when the light turned green and the door unlocked. Inside was a staff break room, currently empty. Mills stood in the connecting hallway, her expression professionally neutral. "Ranger Holloway," she said quietly. "And the Harper twins. Deputy Cruz said you had evidence." Jack nodded, retrieving the disposable camera and Clara's letter from his pocket. "This needs to be developed immediately. It's what they attacked Clara for." Mills accepted both items, examining the camera with practiced efficiency. Clara's final documentation. "I've been waiting for this." She tucked them securely into her scrubs pocket. She risked everything to complete the evidence chain. "Where is she?" Jack asked. "4th floor, room 417, as she arranged." Mills's expression softened as she looked at the twins. "She's stable but sedated. Concussion, broken ribs, defensive wounds on her arms. She managed to escape after the attack and get to a park ranger station on the eastern boundary. Collapsed there." The twins listened with solemn attention, absorbing the clinical description of their mother's condition without visible distress, another testament to Clara's preparation of her children for difficult realities. "Blackwood has men here," Jack warned. Mills nodded. "Two visible, at least two more circulating. They're posing as private security hired by the hospital after a random attack on a patient. Hospital administration doesn't know any better." She removed her ID badge, turning it over to reveal a federal shield subtly embedded in the holographic overlay, visible only from certain angles. "I've been undercover since Clara was admitted. We needed to secure her and the evidence before moving against Blackwood. And now?" Jack asked. "Now we have what we need," Mills confirmed. "I have a federal tactical team on standby 20 minutes out. I've been waiting for the final evidence before calling them in." She glanced at her watch. "I need 15 minutes to make a secure call and set things in motion. We need to reach Clara before Blackwood's men realize what's happening," Jack insisted. Mills considered this, then made a decision. "Take my badge. It will access the service elevator at the end of this hall. That will bypass the security in the main lobby. I'll use the time to alert my team and secure the evidence." Jack accepted the badge, its weight suddenly representing much more than hospital access. "What about Green?" "My team will secure his release as their first action," Mills assured him. "Federal authority supersedes the local charges. The twins had remained silent during this exchange, but now Lily spoke up. "The bad men will be scared when they see you," she told Jack. "You look like you could fight a bear." Despite the tension, Jack felt a smile tug at his lips. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that." Mills checked the hallway before gesturing them toward the service elevator. "Fourth floor, west wing, room 417. She met Jack's eyes with professional intensity. "Get to Clara. I'll handle the rest." The elevator doors closed, separating them from their federal ally and carrying them upward, toward Clara, toward confrontation, toward resolution. The service elevator opened onto a dimly lit corridor, the night shift lighting creating pools of shadow between overhead fixtures. Jack checked the small map mounted on the wall. Room 417 was in the west wing, 3 hallways away. He crouched to the twins' eye level. "Stay very close," he instructed. "If I tell you to hide, find the nearest room and get under a bed. Duke will stay with you." The twins nodded, with the serious comprehension of children who understood real danger. Duke remained at their side, his body tense with protective alertness. They moved through the quiet hallways like ghosts, avoiding the nurses' station where a single attendant focused on paperwork. As they approached the west wing, Jack spotted a man in a dark suit standing outside a room midway down the corridor, room 417. Clara's room. Jack studied the situation, noting the guard's position and stance. The man was professionally alert, positioned to observe both the hallway and the elevator bank. Getting past him without confrontation would be impossible. As Jack considered his options, the rhythmic beeping of medical equipment drifted from Clara's room. A heart monitor, steady and reassuring. The sound created an unexpected emotional response in Jack. A tangible reminder that Clara Harper was alive, was fighting, was waiting for her daughters. The twins heard it too. Rose gripped her sister's hand tightly, their identical faces showing the first real emotion Jack had seen since their ordeal began. "Hope, fear and longing in equal measure, Mama," Lily whispered. So softly it was barely audible. Jack made a decision. Direct confrontation was unavoidable, but he could control how it happened. He removed his ranger badge, making sure it caught the light. "Stay here until I call you," he told the twins, positioning them in an alcove housing a linen cart. "Duke, guard." The German shepherd settled before the children, a living barrier between them and potential danger. Jack approached the guard with confident strides, badge clearly visible. "Forest Service," he announced calmly. "I need to speak with the patient regarding evidence found at Whitewater Falls." The guard stiffened, his hand moving subtly toward his jacket. "This room is restricted. Hospital security only." "I have authorization," Jack countered, reaching slowly for his pocket as if to retrieve documentation. The guard's attention followed Jack's hand. Exactly as intended. In one fluid motion, Jack closed the distance between them, using his larger frame to pin the man against the wall, one hand clamping over the guard's mouth while the other secured his gun hand. "Federal agents are already in the building," Jack said quietly, his voice carrying absolute conviction. "Blackwood is finished. How this goes for you depends on what happens in the next 30 seconds. The guard's eyes widened at the mention of federal agents. Jack maintained pressure, feeling the moment when resistance began to fade. "Not if you understand that cooperation is your best option right now." A slight nod. "I'm going to release you. You're going to place your weapon on the floor and step away from this door. Any other choice ends badly for you. Clear?" Another nod, more definitive. Jack slowly released his grip. The guard hesitated only briefly before carefully extracting his weapon and placing it on the floor. Self-preservation was evidently stronger than loyalty to Blackwood. "The other teams in the building?" Jack asked. "2 at the main entrance, 1 circulating each floor," the guard answered, professional enough to recognize a losing position. "Shift change in 20 minutes. Jack secured the weapon. "Walk to the elevator. Leave the building. Don't communicate with your team." The guard glanced toward Clara's room, then back at Jack, making a final calculation before choosing the path of self-preservation. He moved toward the elevator without looking back. Jack waited until the elevator doors closed before signaling the twins. They appeared instantly at his side, Duke following protectively. The steady beeping of the heart monitor grew louder as Jack carefully pushed open the door to room 417. The room was dimly lit, with a single small lamp casting a warm glow over the bed where Clara Harper lay. Despite the bruising on her face and the bandage around her head, her resemblance to her daughter's was unmistakable. The same heart-shaped face, the same delicate features. An IV line ran to her arm, and the heart monitor created its steady rhythm, each beep confirming life. The twins moved forward as if in a trance, their small hands reaching for their mother's. At the touch, Clara's eyelids fluttered, then opened slowly. Recognition dawned in eyes the same amber color as her daughter's. "My brave girls," she whispered, her voice raspy but clear. "We found the Guardian," Lily said solemnly. Just like you said, Clara's gaze shifted to Jack, standing protectively at the door. Something passed between them, recognition of what he had done, what he had risked for her children. "Thank you," she said simply. The moment of reunion was interrupted by a commotion in the hallway, raised voices, rapid footsteps. Jack tensed, positioning himself between the door and the small family. The heart monitor's beeping increased slightly, the only indication of Clara's distress. "They're coming," she said with calm certainty, reaching beneath her pillow to extract a small object. "Take this. It's the last piece." Jack accepted what appeared to be a memory card, no larger than his thumbnail. "What Mills has, plus this will finish it," Clara explained. "But you need to get my daughters out now." The footsteps grew closer. Time was running out. The footsteps in the hallway multiplied, at least 3 men approaching with purpose. Jack assessed their options with rapid precision. The room had a single door and a window overlooking a 4-story drop. No viable escape route. Under the bed, he instructed the twins, who hesitated, reluctant to leave their mother's side. "Go!" Clara urged them. "Just like our practice drills." The twins obeyed, sliding beneath the hospital bed with practiced efficiency. Duke positioned himself beside them, his body tense and ready. Jack quickly unplugged Clara's heart monitor to silence its betraying rhythm, then moved to the door, the guard's confiscated weapon ready. Through the small window, he could see 3 men in dark suits converging on the room, Blackwood's security team. Alerted by the missing guard, as Jack prepared for confrontation, Clara reached for the emergency call button beside her bed. Instead of pressing it for nurse assistance, she held it down for 3 seconds, then tapped it twice in rapid succession. Instantly, a shrill alarm blared throughout the building. Not a medical emergency signal, but the hospital's fire alarm. Emergency lights began flashing, and an automated voice announced, "Code Red, all personnel implement evacuation protocols immediately." "EPA signal," Clara explained, her voice stronger than it had appeared moments before. "Mills is initiating federal intervention." The corridor erupted into controlled chaos as night staff began implementing evacuation procedures. Blackwood's men hesitated, suddenly visible and out of place, as nurses and orderlies emerged from rooms and stations. Jack's phone vibrated with a text from Mills. "Federal team entering building. Hold position." "They're here," he told Clara, watching as hospital staff began methodically moving patients toward evacuation routes. A nurse appeared at the door, startled to find Jack standing there. "Sir, we need to evacuate this patient." Jack made a split-second decision, producing Mills' hospital ID. "I'm with hospital security. Special protective detail for this patient." "We have a specific evacuation protocol." The nurse hesitated, then nodded. "Hospital emergency training emphasizing compliance during crisis situations. Use the service elevator. It's on emergency power." As the nurse moved on to the next room, Clara carefully removed her IV line and sat up, wincing but determined. "The twins?" "Here, Mama," came Rose's voice as both girls emerged from under the bed. "We need to move now," Jack said, helping Clara to her feet. She was more steady than he expected. Her injuries serious, but not debilitating. In the hallway, Blackwood's men had been separated by the flow of evacuating patients and staff. Jack guided Clara and the twins in the opposite direction, toward the service elevator Mills had shown them earlier. Duke stayed close, his body creating a barrier between the family and potential threats. They reached the elevator without confrontation, the confusion of the evacuation providing perfect cover. As the doors closed, Clara leaned heavily against the wall, her strength visibly waning. "Blackwood himself is in the building," she said between controlled breaths. "I saw him earlier speaking with the doctor, pretending to be concerned about my condition." "He'll be looking for an exit now," Jack replied, considering their next move. "With the federal team entering, his men will warn him." The elevator reached the ground floor, opening into the staff corridor near the entrance where they'd met Mills. The fire alarm continued its insistent wailing, and the hallway was crowded with evacuating personnel and ambulatory patients. Through the glass doors leading to the parking lot, Jack spotted a scene of organized intervention. Black SUVs with federal markings had surrounded the building, and agents in tactical gear were establishing a perimeter. Mills's team had arrived in force. "There," Clara said suddenly, gripping Jack's arm and nodding toward a side exit. Through the crowd, Jack spotted Thomas Blackwood, recognizable from news photos, being hurriedly escorted toward the door by 2 security men. The CEO's usually composed face showed naked panic as he sought escape. "He's running," Jack observed. Clara's expression hardened. "Not this time." Before Jack could respond, Clara reached for the nearest fire alarm pull station and activated it, adding a second local alarm to the already blaring system-wide alert. The sudden additional noise caused everyone in the vicinity to turn toward the source, including Blackwood. For a moment, their eyes met across the crowded hallway, the environmental photographer and the corrupt developer. Recognition and hatred flashed across Blackwood's face, followed quickly by terror as he spotted Jack beside her, and finally understanding as he noticed federal agents entering through the main doors. "Clara Harper," a voice called through the chaos. Agent Mills appeared flanked by 2 tactical team members. "Thomas Blackwood, you're under arrest for conspiracy, environmental crimes, and attempted murder." Blackwood made a desperate break for the side exit, shoving a nurse aside. His security men moved to intercept the federal agents, creating a momentary barrier. "Jack!" Clara said urgently. "The memory card. Make sure Mills gets it." Jack nodded, placing a protective arm around the twins as the confrontation between federal agents and Blackwood's security unfolded before them. Duke growled, sensing the escalating tension. "It's over," Jack assured the small family beside him. "One way or another, it ends here." The fire alarm continued its relentless wailing, a chaotic soundtrack to the moment justice finally caught up with Thomas Blackwood. 3 weeks later, Rissou. Morning sunlight streamed through the windows of Clara Harper's cottage, recently restored from the damage of the attack. Jack sat at the kitchen table, coffee mug in hand, scanning the latest newspaper. The front page featured yet another headline in what had become Pinecrest County's biggest story in decades. "Blackwood pleads guilty to environmental crimes, faces 30 years. The article detailed how Vista Ridge's CEO had accepted a plea deal to avoid additional charges of attempted murder and conspiracy. His cooperation had implicated 6 county officials and the sheriff in a corruption scheme that had allowed the toxic dumping to continue for years. Outside, the twins played with Duke in the meadow. Their resilience continued to astonish Jack. Within days of the hospital confrontation, they had begun to reclaim their childhood, though they still maintained the watchful awareness of children who had seen too much too young. "More coffee?" Clara asked, entering from her darkroom where she'd been organizing evidence photos for the federal case. Jack nodded, studying her as she moved around the kitchen. Her physical injuries were healing. The head bandage gone, the bruises faded to yellow shadows. The deeper wounds would take longer, but her determination remained undiminished. The Eastern Watershed Protection Bill passed the state legislature, Jack mentioned, pointing to another article. "They're citing your evidence as the catalyst." Clara allowed herself a small smile of satisfaction. Green says they're naming a clause after me, the Harper provision for whistleblower protections. She filled his cup, then sat across from him. Have you decided? The question hung between them, the same one she'd been asking since her release from the hospital. Jack's carefully constructed solitude had been permanently disrupted, forcing him to consider possibilities he'd avoided for years. I spoke with the regional director yesterday, he said finally. They've approved my transfer to the Pinecrest East Station. It's 10 minutes from here. Relief and something warmer flickered across Clara's face. The twins will be glad. They've grown attached. Just the twins? Jack asked, surprising himself with the directness of the question. Clara met his eyes without pretense. You know better than that. Their developing relationship remained careful, measured, two solitary people learning to make space for connection after years of self-reliance. Jack had spent more nights on their couch than at his own cabin in recent weeks, becoming an unexpected but welcomed presence in the Harper household. The doorbell interrupted their moment. Deputy Cruz, recently promoted to acting sheriff following the corruption arrests, stood on the porch with Martin Green, the environmental attorney now sporting a cast on his arm from his resistance during his unlawful arrest. Morning, Cruz greeted them. Thought you'd want these in person. She handed Clara an envelope bearing federal markings. Inside were official adoption application papers, with Jack's name listed as petitioner for legal guardianship of Lily and Rose Harper. Agent Mills expedited them, Cruz explained. Said something about making official what was already reality. Jack accepted the papers with unexpected emotion. After his failed relationship with his own daughter, the possibility of redemption through these two remarkable children felt like a second chance he hadn't dared hope for. There's more, Green added, producing a document from his briefcase. The Federal Environmental Recovery Fund is purchasing all the contaminated properties around Coldwater Creek at fair market value, not Blackwood's deflated prices. They'll be converted into a protected watershed preserve. Clara's eyes widened. The whole eastern corridor? Green nodded, his bow tie, today patterned with small pine trees, slightly askew as always. They're asking you to head the documentation project. Full federal funding. The news represented everything Clara had fought for: protection for the land, accountability for the perpetrators, and the opportunity to continue her environmental work. Jack watched as the twins raced across the meadow, Duke bounding joyfully alongside them. Their world, so recently threatened, was healing around them, as were the people who had come together to protect it. Cruz cleared her throat. One more thing. The county board wants to officially recognize what you both did. There's going to be a ceremony next week. Jack and Clara exchanged glances of mutual discomfort, neither comfortable with public attention. We'll think about it. Clara answered diplomatically. After Cruz and Green departed, Clara joined Jack on the porch, watching the twins in companionable silence. I never thanked you properly, she said finally. For finding them. For protecting them. They found me, Jack corrected. Under that bridge. Clara's hand found his, a simple gesture that spoke volumes. Either way, you became exactly what they called you. What's that? Their guardian, she said softly. And mine too, it seems. In the meadow, the twins had crowned Duke with a wreath of wildflowers, his dignified acceptance of this indignity making them collapse in giggles. The sound of children's laughter, once foreign to Jack's existence, now felt like the most natural music in the world. The adoption papers sat on the side table between them, not yet signed, but a promise of permanence neither had expected to find. 1 year later, Whitewater Bridge stood as it had for a century, stone arch spanning the creek, water flowing beneath in eternal rhythm. Yet for the small group gathered on its weathered surface, it represented something transformed, no longer a place of fear and hiding, but of commemoration and new beginnings. Hold still, Martin Green instructed, adjusting the timer on the camera tripod. 3 seconds. He hurried to join the group, Jack standing tall in his dress ranger uniform, Clara beside him in a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, the twins in front wearing identical yellow sundresses, and Duke sitting regally at their feet, his grey muzzle the only sign of his advancing years. The camera clicked, capturing the moment. 5 beings connected by choice rather than chance, framed by the bridge that had begun their story. Perfect timing with the light, Green approved, reviewing the image. His signature bow tie, today patterned with small cameras in honor of the occasion, bobbed as he nodded satisfaction. It had been Clara's idea to mark the anniversary here, at the place Jack had first found the twins. Full circle, she'd explained. Reclaiming spaces that held fear. The newly designated Harper Wilderness Preserve extended around them in all directions, 15,000 acres protected in perpetuity, funded by the penalties levied against Vista Ridge properties and the seized assets of Thomas Blackwood's criminal enterprise. "Can we show Jack our special place now?" Lily asked, exchanging glances with her sister. Clara nodded. "Lead the way." The twins ran ahead along the creek bank, following a path only they seemed to see. Jack and Clara followed at a more measured pace, their hands occasionally brushing in the comfortable intimacy they had developed. "The adoption paperwork is finally complete," Jack mentioned. "Judge signed off yesterday." Clara's expression softened. "Just in time for their birthday next week. 10 years old, can you believe it?" The legal process had taken longer than expected, complicated by Jack's history of estrangement from his biological daughter. In the end, character references from Deputy Cruz, now elected sheriff in her own right, and Agent Mills had tipped the scales. "Sarah called yesterday," Jack added, referring to his biological daughter. "She's considering bringing the grandkids for a visit this summer." Clara squeezed his hand, understanding the significance. Jack's tentative reconciliation with his daughter had been an unexpected byproduct of his new role with the twins, healing one family relationship while building another. "Here it is," Rose called from ahead. They arrived at a small clearing beside the creek, where the twins had arranged stones in a perfect circle. In the center stood a sapling, a young pine, recently planted but already reaching skyward with determined energy. "We planted it for you," Lily explained to Jack, "because you found us here." "Duke helped," Rose added, patting the German shepherd who had appointed himself their permanent guardian. Jack crouched to examine their handiwork, genuine emotion making it difficult to speak. The careful stone circle, the healthy sapling, the obvious planning that had gone into this gesture, all of it representing how these children had transformed his life as surely as he had protected theirs. "It's perfect," he managed finally. "Thank you." Clara stood slightly apart, watching the interaction with quiet satisfaction. Her camera hung at her side. Not the professional equipment she used for her environmental documentation work, but a simple one for family moments. She raised it now, capturing Jack with her daughters, their easy connection, their shared smiles. The past year had brought justice, healing, and unexpected family bonds. Blackwood remained in federal prison. The contaminated watershed was slowly recovering under Clara's careful documentation. The twins had returned to school, making friends, but maintaining their special connection to the wilderness their mother had taught them to love. And Jack, solitary, reticent Jack Holloway, had found himself surrounded by love he never sought, but now couldn't imagine living without. "We should head back," Clara suggested eventually. "The community center ceremony starts at 3, the twins groaned in unison. "Do we have to wear the fancy dresses?" "Yes," Clara replied firmly. "When your guardian receives a medal from the governor, fancy dresses are required." Jack grimaced. The commendation ceremony had been unavoidable, despite his discomfort with public recognition. "I still say they should be giving it to you," he told Clara. "You built the case. You took all the risks. We all did our part," she replied simply. "That's what family does." The word hung in the air between them, no longer foreign or frightening, but a comfortable truth. As they walked back toward the bridge where their journey had begun, Jack's hand found Clara's, their fingers intertwining with practiced ease. Behind them, the twins whispered and giggled, plotting some new adventure. Duke trotted between the pairs, belonging equally to both. And above them all, the ancient forest that had witnessed their story continued its quiet growth, damaged in places, but healing, strengthening, enduring, like the family that had found each other beneath the old stone bridge.